Hello, everybody. It's July 28th, 2025. Joe from the Strange Voyage Files, and it is the 50th anniversary of the release of Sabotage. Um, so, a lot of people are doing this video because we just lost Ozzy a week ago today, and it's the first anniversary of an album he's been on since we lost him. So, in paying respect and in paying, showing our love for Ozzy, you probably see a whole bunch of Sabotage videos. I'm going to do my usual ranking and just talk a little bit about this album. Sabbath albums with Ozzy, with the exception of 13, are very, very hard to rank because they really are just all perfect albums. It's it's very difficult. They're You don't have any albums that are horrible. I remember going back and listening to Never Say Die the first time, and at that time, this was in the late '80s. That's when people hated Never Say Die. We kind of forget that now, but people couldn't stand Never Say Die. And I remember listening to it and going, what? Why does everyone hate this album? Now, I will say the B side is definitely not as strong as the A side of the album. The first four songs off that album are great, but really, these albums are phenomenal. And there's that old saying, I only trust the first six Black Sabbath albums, and I don't agree with that at all. I think all the Ozzy ones, with the exception of 13, are awesome albums. But a lot of people do say this is the last great Black Sabbath album. I don't agree with that by any means, at least of the Ozzy ones. But here, I'll show you everything I have, and then, actually, no, we'll do the ranking first, because the ranking is just real easy to go through. And then I'll show you the ones I have and talk a little bit about this album. So the first track is Hole in the Sky, and this is just an explosion in your face right from the beginning. The album starts off strong. This is, a lot of people, and I would agree too, this is their hardest album. This is their I don't know if most metal album is the right way to put it, but absolutely their hardest album all the way through. Hole in the Sky does not disappoint. It is, Ozzy just on all thrusters, going right in your face. An unbelievable song. It's a 5. Don't Start Too Late is just a quick little instrumental, but it is a track, so I'm gonna rate it. There's not much to it. I'm gonna give it a 3. There's nothing great about it. There's nothing horrible about it. It's kind of an extended intro to Symptom of the Universe, pretty much, but it's on there as a track, so that one I give a 3. And then you go into another 5, Symptom of the Universe, Black Sabbath classic. And again, Ozzy sounds great on this album. The whole band, as always, sounds great on this album. I actually think this is one of the albums where you really, really can hear how phenomenal Bill Ward is, because his drums on this entire album are just so thunderous. And kind of trying to think to like Volume 4, and where, of course, again, these albums are so hard to do because they're all perfect albums. But this one really showcases Bill, especially on Symptom of the Universe. Then you get into a track that absolutely blew my mind the first time I heard it. And again, I'm going to talk about this more in detail after the ranking. Megalomania is an absolute 5. The Thrill of It All is one that had to grow on me, but I'd actually say The Thrill of It All is now probably my favorite song on this album, even over Symptom of the Universe. I love it. I love the changes. And again, it's a 5. Superzar is a very haunting instrumental. It is, and I'm not big on instrumentals, but and I believe that this was kind of like the intro to the band during this and the subsequent tours. I know on the videos, like that Never Say Die video, live video, this introed them. So but it's haunting. It's great. They have this chorus in it. It's phenomenal. It is, again, it's an instrumental. I give it a 4. Am I going insane? I always love that song. I think a lot of people, this may be the one track that's kind of at a low point on this album, but again, a low point of great tracks. I don't agree with that. I love it. It's a 5, and The Writ, again, a 5. Unbelievable, epic song. So when you average all this up, 4.6. I don't do decimals, so it's a 5. Which, yeah, absolutely, I would make this a 5 album. All right, let's go into a little bit more of the details. But first, I'll show off. I do have 4 versions of this album. The CD version, and this is the original CD version. So this is ripped from, I believe, before they did any remastering of albums. Then I have, again, this was bought in the 80s, so this is the LP. In fact, somewhere along the lines, I don't know how I did, but I lost the inner sleeve. It was just a clear sleeve. There was nothing to it. I love Bill's pants. I think the most famous part of this album are Bill's pants, and I love how Ozzy is just kind of like sticking his head into that mirror for the backside of this. And again, the story. The pants are Bill's wife's pants. But yeah, this is the album. I had this on album before. See, it's coming out. I got to get a sleeve for that. Anything else? And then I did get. That stuff's gonna start falling. I also got the Hand of Doom box set. So I have this, which is really nice. This picture disc. I just got the Hand of Doom box set a little while ago, a couple months ago. Very nice. Plays good. It sounds good. The olden days, you get a picture disc. Like the You Said It All picture disc. It sounds clunky. That's not the case anymore. And then I'm probably going to do a separate video on this, but this is probably the biggest disappointment out of these super deluxe packages. And I don't get these on album. I just get them on CD because I still burn these to my my Windows Media, so I can have those MP3s to put on my phone, and I can take my record collection anywhere. So yeah, this was neat. It came with the I don't want to drop stuff. Came with the book, and there's kind of a tour book, I believe, with there, and a poster. And the reason I say that this one is kind of the one that's most disappointing, there's no remixes, there's no outtakes. I mean, we do get live stuff, which is great, but I believe this may have been, at least on a bootleg before. You do have some great live versions of Megalomania. I love that they played that song because it's, a long song. I love that they played that live. You get Megalomania, you get Spiral Architect, which I absolutely love, and then they did that again when they reunited. And then you get, Children of the Grave, Paranoid, Killing Yourself to Live, which is a great song. So, I mean, you get some great live stuff, and then the last CD in this one is Am I Going Insane, the Japanese single with Hole in the Sky. There's just really nothing special. Whereas when you look at especially Technical Ecstasy, because they give you a whole bunch of remixes and alternate versions and whatnot, and you look at Paranoid and, Paranoid, you had stereo. It wasn't a whole bunch of remix. There was one other type of remix thing in Paranoid. Volume 4 had some cool outtakes and whatnot, but this one was really disappointing. But I'm a completist. I want all of them, so I got it. There's no way I'm not going to get it. It's Sabotage, so yeah, definitely a 5 album, absolutely without a doubt. So a little bit about this album, especially my take on it. I do remember. I want to say this may have been my last, if not close to my last, Black Sabbath album that I got with Ozzy as I was getting Black Sabbath albums. And God, I just remember being blown away, especially by I love Hole in the Sky. I mean, there's these songs I used to listen to over and over and over and over, and I just remember this was so hard pounding. This was so Symptom of the Universe. I had known before from We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, and I think Am I Going Insane is on that one as well. But also, you get two Ozzy, at least lyrically wise, pen songs with Am I Going Insane and The Writ. He may have written I think the story goes that he wrote a lot of the music for Am I Going Insane. And I think he wrote the lyrics for The Writ. Now, again, you never really know the whole story. And now that Ozzy's passed, we have this tightrope to walk where we say, well, we don't want to dishonor his memory, but we also have to be truthful here. The Osbournes have rewritten a lot of history. And speaking of the Osbournes, I've been watching that show a lot lately, and there's an episode where he has this old organ synthesizer type thing, and he does talk about this is what I wrote, Am I Going Insane, The Writ, and Who Are You on. And those have been the ones that were really talked about as far as him writing. Now, I don't think there's a Black Sabbath song that exists that does not have Tony Iommi's musical input on. I find it very, very difficult to believe that any of those songs, even Fairies Wear Boots, Ozzy is supposed to have written some parts. There's no way in the world I am ever going to believe that Ozzy wrote all of the music to any of these songs without Tony Iommi. Me even kind of being like the teacher and saying, okay, that song's good. Let's go over it. Let me make some fixes. So, but I mean, either way, even if they are just the lyrics or just having some of the music, these are great songs. The Writ, and one of the things that is unique for me, I hate long songs. And it really does seem, in my experience, that Ozzy songs, and especially Black Sabbath, are the exception to the rule. As much as I love Iron Maiden, I can't with a lot of their, especially the 2000 and on albums. I just can't sit through these 13 minutes, 14-minute song, 12-minute songs. They bore the hell out of me. So when I initially look at a song like Megalomania or The Writ, which are longer songs, that doesn't happen. They're unbelievable. And the way Megalomania starts, all right, let's just go through them all. Hole in the Sky, I've loved from day one. It's just a punch in your face. It is a great start to the album. Ozzy sounds great. Don't Start Too Late Again. It's more of an intro to Symptom of the Universe, which Symptom of the Universe is an all-time classic. Once again, how, just a hard rocking, very, very heavy. You could tell what was going on as they're recording this album. And what's going on is they are in all this unbelievable legal battles with the Mehans, the father and son, that have stolen so much money from them. And they are so pissed off. And I believe it was, there's probably several interviews, but I believe maybe Geezer wrote it in his book, and I did read all of their books. I'd love for Bill to write one. And Ozzy may have said it too. In fact, all three of them may have said it. But the one that's sticking out is Geezer saying we had to do this album because we had to produce an album to pay all the legal fees. Because when they broke with the Mehans, they didn't own anything. They didn't own their publishing. They didn't own. So all of that money and all that control was through them, through the Mehans. So, and like I said, I believe the one that's sticking out is Geezer saying we had to do an album just to pay legal fees. So you can feel this anger in this album, and then Megalomania, starts out very weird and mellow, and psychedelic. Again, this is still the mid 70s, so psychedelic is still a big thing. And then just goes into this pounding, powerful song. The Thrill of It All, same thing. They do the same thing with Thrill of It All, where it starts off very slow and then goes into this absolute punch in your face. Um, and I just think it's awesome. Superstar again is a very haunting track. It's an instrumental, and then the choir comes in, and it is very. I mean, it sounds like something that you would hear in a church. It is gothic, and it is very Black Sabbath and whatnot. Am I going insane? And again, I believe these are Ozzy type lyrics. Again, he doesn't write much as far as lyrics, but it sounds like something Ozzy would write. And again, just fast paced, great song. And the Writ is Ozzy's, and everybody agrees. I believe everybody has agreed that Ozzy wrote the lyrics to the Writ. His middle finger to the Means, the father and son. So, but I remember, man, getting this album and listening to it, and just being blown away all the way through. And again, as I say, I don't like long songs. I get bored. I just, I don't know if I have ADHD or what it is. I lose interest. I lose interest in things very easily, quickly. But Megalomania and the Writ, I can listen to them all the way through and love them all the way through. And again, it's produced by Black Sabbath and Mike Butcher, and this is probably more of a, this is where Tony Iommi is really, Tony Iommi had really taken over after, during Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but this kind of continues it. It blew me away. This album was so powerful, and that's really the word that sticks out, is powerful. I don't think that there's no, if you're looking for changes, you're not going to find it on this album. If you're looking for fluff, you're not going to find it on this album at all. Again, I'm not going to throw "Don't Start" in there, and I'm talking about the songs that are songs. And again, Sabbath would do this "Don't Start Too Late," and Red Salad's a much longer song, but like Embryo and whatnot, because this is the 70s, and Sabbath, Kiss, Aerosmith, Zeppelin, all these bands were studio tour. So they didn't have enough songs to fill an album. So they would do instrumentals, and they would, like on Paranoid, they'd have Luke's Wall, War Pigs, and Jack the Stripper, Fairies Wear Boots. And like on the first album, they were, basically NIB, all these splits to make it seem like it's a longer album. That's why, sadly, I don't think we're ever going to have unreleased material from Sabbath. And I think Tony has said that multiple times, that there's nothing in the vaults. I know there's that song "Scary Dreams" from the first time, before 13, when they tried to do an album together, and they played that live. That's on YouTube. That came out, late 90? That was something like that. But, when we talk about classic Sabbath era, there's nothing. There's just absolutely nothing, because they were writing and just enough songs to record an album and do it. Again, I come back to, a lot of people say this is the last great Black Sabbath album. I couldn't argue against that more. Yes, this is the last. This is by far the last Black Sabbath sounding album. If you get what I'm saying, this is the last doom and gloom, the last, dark and brooding, if you will. This is it, because Technical Ecstasy comes in. And then, and that sounds more like a proggy album. And Never Say Die is kind of proggy, but, definitely more of a Bostonish type of album, if you will. Because that's what Tony wanted to, Tony wanted to write hits, and was kind of trying to follow in the leads, Journey in Boston, and REO and Styx and these types of bands. So yes, this is absolutely the last of the true Sabbath sounding albums. Does not mean it is the last great Sabbath album at all. A lot of people would disagree with me. That's fine. And this is a lot of people's favorite album. I can't even argue that with them. I will still say mine, the Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but this is an absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal album. 50 years. I can't believe it's been 50 years. I was, don't get me wrong, I was just a baby when this came out, but, it's gone fast. It's gone very, very fast. We don't get things like this anymore. And it's not just my generation. We heard it growing up from our parents. That's not real music, and you don't know what a real musician is, and blah, blah. Well, that wasn't true. It wasn't, because we had, I think we had the best musicians of all time. When I talk to my daughters, and I ask them, is there a musician that blows you away? There's nobody. I mean, with the exception of like the hype of the teeny bop stuff like Taylor Swift and whatnot, but as musicianship, there isn't anybody. And I ask them, and I've worked with younger people, I've worked with teens before, and I've had this conversation with a lot of teens, and the closest I came, and this was years ago, was like Five Finger Death Punch, and was that other one? Oh God. I'm picturing their albums. I can't think of who they are. But around that genre, that group of, some of them said bands like that. I can't even think of any of the other bands. I don't know why Five Finger Death Punch popped into my head. The other one had like an album called Nightmare. Their drummer died. Oh my God. Not Arch Enemy, but that was one that I think people talked about. God, this isn't me being old. This is just me not. Oh, Avenged Sevenfold. That was it. But there's nothing. There's nothing like this anymore. So, the fact that 50 years old is astounding, and sadly, music has not gotten better. Sabotage, I mean, what can you say? I just going to keep repeating myself. This was, and it's going to be the same thing with a lot of, when I review Sabbath albums, I was blown away. These are the thundering riffs, the Ward, the lyrics on this album from Geezer, and again, Ozzy's vocals. Ozzy was not the best vocalist by any means, but other people could not sing Ozzy stuff. And we're getting all these tributes, and everybody's singing Crazy Train. I think it would be awesome if somebody belted out Tonight, somebody belted out SATO, somebody, did kind of deep tracks. But I get it. It's the song everybody knows. And I hear them. I mean, you hear all these artists, even at the back to the beginning. I'm not saying they weren't good, but Ozzy did have a melody over this type of music. And even when Ronnie Dio, who is a better singer, and it doesn't mean you like him more, like him less, or like him whatever. The man was a better singer. I mean, he just was. But even when he sings Ozzy stuff, when you listen to Live Evil, no, Ozzy does it a million times better. I couldn't imagine Ozzy singing Holy Diver by any means, or, singing Heaven and Hell. But, this is just the absolute perfection. Definitely Sabotage is a 5, and an album that I think will be listened to until the end of time. And I'm not just saying that. I do believe these albums with the exception of 13, will be listened to forever. So, all right, well, let me know what you think. Again, I'm sure everybody and their brother has a Sabotage video up today, but that's fine. It just shows how much we all love Ozzy and all love Black Sabbath. So, yeah, give this one a listen to if you've never listened to it. You know, I'm assuming if you are watching this video that you have listened to this album. I did earlier today. I probably will again. But, thank you, Ozzy. Thank you, the rest of the guys in Black Sabbath for a perfect album. All right, like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff, and I'll see you soon.